Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled End Times 535, The Impact of Ignorance and Deception, Part 5. How Error and Distrust Defeat the Spirit of Trust Within Your Mind. The podcast objectives are analyze the re-emergence of the Ruach of Self, analyze how error causes you to question your thoughts, analyze the resurgence of distrust, and analyze the impact of error within your mind. Welcome. Now, before we begin today's lesson, I would like to welcome all my beloved brothers and sisters in Yahushua Messiah who have been scattered to the four corners of the earth, who Yahuwah has joined to this ministry for such a time as this. I would also like to welcome anyone who is engaging our podcasts or videos for the first time. We trust you were led by the set apart spirit in finding us. And if you continue to be led, we hope you stay with us. For these are troubling times, and an evil day is just ahead. To this end, if you are watching this video on YouTube and you have not subscribed to our channel, click the subscribe button below, and you will be alerted whenever we post new videos. Also, if you have any questions at the conclusion of this video, you can ask them using the link in the podcast description below the video player. Last but not least, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up so YouTube can share it with believers like us. The governor of all your plans. Shalom, my beloved brothers and sisters, and welcome to day 500 of our exposition of lawlessness. That's right, my friends. We have been on this quest for 500 days now. If you recall, we set off on Monday, July 1st, 2024. Since that day, we have worked tirelessly to eliminate the 80 degrees of lawlessness, to obtain the seal of Elohim, so that we might have everlasting life. And having obtained help from Elohim, we continue unto this day, and nothing will stop us. Amen. Now, in the most recent podcast, we saw what happens when you miss the last exit ramp in the progression of ignorance and deception. To wit, the enemy strips you of your spiritual armor, which makes you powerless in spiritual warfare. This is no doubt a very big deal, for your girdle of truth and your breastplate of righteousness are by default features of your heart. And yet, because they are extensions of compliance, misconception forces you to take them off anyway. Ergo, upon losing your war with misconception and noncompliance, you will find yourself with no path to victory for any battle. And yet, there will always be the next battle. Trust me, the enemy has your number, and he is coming for you. And thus, I must take you further down this rabbit hole to show you how ignorance and deception further complicate the declining state within your mind. As I say, their progressions are not finished. Trust me, this is just the beginning. The ship has barely departed. And even though things are so very bad at the first, they are about to take a turn for the worse. And I will show you how. Let's get started. Now, first things first, before analyzing the next phase in the progression of ignorance and deception, we must first analyze what happens in your thought dimension when misconception reinstates noncompliance. This involves the resurgence of a key player you defeated in the beginning, but now he is back because you couldn't keep winning. Enter the Ruach of Self. Now, the Ruach of Self re-emerged after disregard and despair conquered your renewed personality, and he or she is charting a course to be reinstated as the governor of your mind. And as I said before, it will be 7 points worse for you this time. The reason why is sure, vis-a-vis the landscape of your mind during this war is much different than the first war. To wit, disobedience and doubt are establishing strongholds in tandem, while ignorance and deception are transforming your thought dimension into a hall of mirrors. No doubt, this creates an environment where the Ruach of Self can do more damage than you could ever realize. And the first feature he will look to damage is your planning zone. Here is why. Your planning zone is connected to your execution zone via the mental bridge of trust. Now, that was the inflection. Here is the problem and the great opening for deception. Vis-a-vis, your mind is fixed to execute in accordance with your plans for the simple but sure fact that these two zones are united by trust. You can see this by observing the image to the right. To wit, trust is designed to connect your planning and execution zones to ensure that the thought generated is transacted. Ergo, when your planning zone is conquered by misconception, your mind will assume these misconceptions are true, and it will feed these erroneous interpretations into your execution zone. And this will position you to act in accordance with your misconceived plans, all of which are contrary to the will of Elohim. For even though they were misconceived, since there is trust, you will believe. My dear friends, this development is as troubling as it is sure. Look here. The spirit of misconception is taking advantage of the spiritual framework of your mind, and she is causing you to trust in a lie. And the only reason, the one reason you couldn't see it is because you were complacent, which led you to disregard the command. And now the enemy is using the good to perfect the evil as he makes the Ruach of Self the governor of all your plans. If you don't trust the command. Now, you can see the impact of misconception and non-compliance by analyzing the diagram below. To wit, your planning zone is being controlled by misconception and non-compliance. Not only this, but a good portion of your thought dimension is being compromised by complacency and despair. That said, the question we should chiefly entertain is this: what happens next in the progression of ignorance and deception? The answer is sure. the progression moves on to the focal degrees of disobedience and doubt. You can see this by observing the table below. To wit, disregard and misconception have reinstated despair and noncompliance. And as you know, these are the fundamental degrees of disobedience and doubt. And to signify that these degrees have been reinstated within your mind, I have italicized phase one, i.e., the first line in the table below. Per the progression of ignorance and deception, the next man up is error, and he is designed to reinstate distrust. As you know, distrust is the focal degree of doubt, and for good measure, we should reconsider the definition of distrust. By definition, distrust is a lack of trust, doubt, suspicion. This is no doubt a very straightforward definition, and yet it contains the key to the downfall of your mind. Enter suspicion. Along these lines, suspicion is the key that allows distrust to deal a death blow to your thought dimension. Consider this. Distrust causes you to question the veracity of the thoughts within your mind due to the presence of excess error, which is why the questioning is the first phase in this progression. Here lies the problem, vis-a-vis when you question the veracity of your thoughts, you question the entire process of thought generation. This neutralizes all the features, faculties, and actors within your mind that contribute to the process of thought generation. Per the image below, that includes everything that is outlined in red that was not already conquered by disregard and despair. To wit, distrust conquers more than 80% of your thought dimension, all because despair started you on the path of the questioning. This infected your mind with suspicion, a spiritual mind disease, and a deadly driver of lawlessness that leads you to the path of withdrawal. For you will not guard any command if you don't first trust the command. The prevailing law within your mind. Now, these things being what they surely are, the question of the hour is this: how does error gain the power to reawaken a sleeping giant? To wit, how does the spirit of error reinstate the spirit of distrust in your thought dimension, seeing how this requires an immense effort? The answer is sure, and it is the same path misconception followed to reinstate noncompliance. Along these lines, misconception built off the foundation that was laid by disregard. And now, error is about to do the same. He is going to build on the foundation laid by misconception, picking up where she left off. We know this because a misconception is, and I quote, an idea that is wrong because it is based on an erroneous interpretation of a situation. And thus, we conclude the quickest path to error is by following a path marred with misconceptions. Here lies the problem. Vis-a-vis, error is the focal degree of ignorance. Ergo, error is designed to handicap your mind above all the other degrees of lawlessness by actively increasing your measures of ignorance. And the only way error can succeed in this counter work is by purging your thought dimension of trust. For trust is the primary source of resistance and regulation within your mind. Remember that, my friends. In effect, trust is the prevailing law within your mind. Now, this is why error joins forces with the spirit of distrust. For distrust is the only degree of lawlessness designed to eliminate trust. It will require an uneven playing field, but alas, that is the playing field we are on. Remember, you are still fighting multiple wars with lawlessness on multiple fronts. Not only this, but you are losing them all. And thus, the same fate is waiting the spirit of trust. For, as I said before, you have no path to victory. Therefore, the spirit of error will succeed in reinstating distrust as the prevailing law within your mind. In doing so, error and distrust will work together to conquer 80% of your thought dimension, pushing you further beyond the point of no return. You can see this by observing the image below. And so I encourage you to take a few moments to review as you pause the video. Now, there are three primary areas where error will empower distrust to establish its strongholds, to wit, the adjacent areas of your thought processes and the bridge that connects your planning and execution zone. Now, it doesn't take a genius to realize that this is bad. This is really bad. And this should come as no surprise, seeing as this maneuver is designed to deal a death blow to your mind. Ergo, we must take a closer look at this phase of the invasion so you can see just how bad it is. Let's get to work. A bridge forged by error and distrust. Now, let's start by analyzing the terrific damage that is done to your thought processes. Along these lines, your thought processes are the most pervasive features within your mind. To wit, your thought processes are the primary drivers of thought generation. Ergo, your thoughts are primarily a reflection of your thought processes. For these processes determine what and how you think. Here lies the problem. Vis-a-vis, your thought processes are now governed by error and distrust. And if you are keeping a list of the deadliest poisons when taken together, add these two to the top of your list. Here is why. By controlling your thought processes, error and distrust will force you to believe in a lie. For these two poisons, when taken together, prevent your thought processes from seeing the truth. Now, this is clearer to see when you reconsider the definition of error. Once more, please. By definition, an error is an act or condition of ignorant and or imprudent deviation from a code of behavior, belief in something untrue, a mistake in a matter of fact or law, a deficiency or imperfection in structure or function. Now, this definition reveals that an error is belief in something untrue. No doubt, this setback is, within and of itself, a huge dilemma. However, believing something is untrue is not equated to following an erroneous path, to wit, an ignorant or imprudent deviation from a code of behavior. And thus, this is why error is strategically aligned with distrust. To wit, distrust causes you to doubt a code of behavior. It forces you to question a matter of fact or law. which results in a deficiency or imperfection in structure or function. This creates a mental environment of suspicion, which causes you to follow an erroneous path. In effect, error makes you extremely vulnerable to distrust, which makes it more likely that you will follow a path marred by misconceptions and errors. It's a vicious cycle, and some of the worst poisons, when taken together, are in fact a vicious cycle. Now, this brings us to the intersection between your planning and execution zones. Along these lines, ignorance manipulated this intersection by causing you to believe in a lie. However, once you believe in the lie, there is no need for the mental bridge of trust, for it has served its purpose vis-a-vis by causing you to trust in a lie. The spirit of error has created a mental environment of suspicion, which is conducive to distrust. Now, that said, the question we should chiefly entertain is this: what do you suppose distrust does to your mental bridge of trust once he has been reinstated? The answer is sure. Distrust destroys your mental bridge, creating a disconnect between Yahuwah's vision for your life and your plans. However, the spirit of distrust does not stop there. Au contraire, mon frère. You see, that's what happened the last time. But this time, distrust has a partner who is 7 times stronger than he is. And this new partner has a very clear mission. That is, to put your mind in spiritual lockdown so that it can never recover. My dear friends, I meant what I said when I said there is a point of no return in this quest, and we are drawing near to that point with regards to your mind. Along these lines, the spirit of error empowers the spirit of distrust to create a new bridge. And as you have likely guessed, this new bridge is forced by error and distrust. Here is what this means for your mind. Once error and distrust create a bridge to connect your planning and execution zones, you will be subjected to a mental environment that has no trust in the truth. Now, we know this because error is feeding into distrust. Ergo, any matter that is in opposition to the error within your mind will not be trusted. That includes the truth. Ergo, as the bridge of distrust feeds into both zones, neither your plans nor your execution can be aligned with the truth. My dear friends, it goes without saying that we are drawing near to the end as it pertains to your mind. Trust me, you are on the verge of descending to a mental plane worse than the first. It's just a matter of time. For where there is no truth, there will be no peace to find. This is the impact of error and distrust. And yet, the damage of ignorance is not finished. The damage of ignorance is not done. Now, here is the final word. 2 of the greatest poisons, when taken together, are thoughts of distrust and a mind filled with error. Brothers and sisters, hear me carefully as I say, it is difficult to constantly consider the worst case scenario. And yet, when you are dealing with lawlessness, it is inevitable that you will encounter constant worst case scenarios. And yet, your encounter with error and distrust will be one of your greatest spiritual disasters. And if you thought you were dying before, believe me, in this scenario, death comes faster. Heretofore, I recommend stay away from every path that would cause you to lose touch with the truth, for no good will ever come. For many of our people did not appreciate these sentiments, and it is for certain that they will never make it home. Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on today's lesson. And if you have any questions, please submit them using the form at pinnacleofholiness.com. And I will respond to you as soon as I can. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, End Times 535, The Impact of Ignorance and Deception, Part 5. And the next podcast is entitled The United Nation of Israel, Part 7. I will post this podcast on Friday, November 14th, 2025. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim. Continue to watch, continue to pray, continue in fasting, and most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end is near.